Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys for joining me. I am back at it with yet another video this Sunday, and this is going to be the astro weather for the week of December 7th through the 14th, 2025. Now, big headlines for the week. We're going to see Mars in Sagittarius coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So stay tuned for all the info in this video. Please do give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Consider sharing and subscribing. Click the bell button below if you want to see more of these kind of reports. I'm here Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Just a couple heads up about the channel. So obviously we're going to be doing a live this Friday. We'll be doing live tarot. We'll be here at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. Come and hang out, get your cards read if you guys want to get a reading. Make sure that you guys check the kind of post on the channel. We'll be posting the live link if you want to sign up and get in the queue. It's always fun on Fridays. For those of you guys who participated in the holiday sale over the last week and a half, thank you guys so much. We've got a whole bunch of students that are signing up for my 301 Mastering Advanced Astrology Techniques. That's going to be beginning at the end of January in 2026. You may have missed the sale, but we have a few spots left for people who would like to join the class. We're limiting it to 40 people. And I have currently 2 spots left for my 2026 personalized forecast. So if you guys want to snag that, we limit those as well. I have a brand new format this year. I'm going to be doing your personalized numerology. You're going to get a year of the wheel kind of tarot spread. I'm going to talk about your own personal predictions. I go through your Time Lord, your solar return, all of the retrogrades, the eclipses, and make lots of recommendations in how to navigate your year like a pro. I'll give you the best transits for travel, love, finances, health, beauty, and much more. So click the links below if you want to check that out. We also still have our personal transit calendars to help you guys navigate 2026. My 2026 ritual calendars. So there's like rituals and a tarot card reading for each sign, and also the transits for the year. We have those in digital and print. So if you guys are still looking for gifts, check out beyondtheveiltarot.com. We also offer gift cards, and we are going to be doing bundled specials. So if you guys want to bundle your readings for the year ahead, and I'm opening my books for my private clients, for people who want to work with me for 6 or 12 months at a time and get priority booking. All right, so we've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm just going to tell you guys at the head of the video, buckle up, get a helmet this week, because things are going to feel a little frustrating and then confusing. So I think if there's any takeaway, there's going to be some stuff that's going to happen that I think we're going to experience some setbacks, some challenges, some frustration, and some delays. But I want you guys to keep in mind that some things may be feeling like they're falling apart, so other things can come together. And there is going to be some delays and some setbacks that are actually going to be blessings in a disguise. So if the universe is holding something back this week, if it's not giving you that green light, it's for a good reason, and it's giving us the opportunity to kind of recalibrate and think about where we are going. Now, the reason being is obviously we are going to see Mars come into a square with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And so these are some hard aspects that are going to be hitting a multitude of different signs. So there's a lot of kind of moving parts in this. We're going to break it down as we go throughout the week. I'm going to talk about the themes of the Mars-Saturn square, and then we're going to look at day by day with what's going on with the moon and what you guys can do to kind of navigate the astral weather. So for the weekly vibe ahead, this week kind of feels like the universe is handing us a final exam, probably on everything that we have been learning since April of 2024. Now, back in 2024 in the spring, this is when we saw Mars come into conjunction with Saturn in Pisces. It was around 14 degrees. And now we are seeing the final square as it's coming into a square with Saturn and also Neptune. Now, Mars is moving through Sagittarius. It's fiery, it's feisty, it's freedom-loving. By the time you guys are watching this video, you are already feeling the square happening. It can really be kind of in the air from about December the 6th through about December the 9th. And, it's squaring off with Saturn in Pisces. So this is kind of like a dreamy sign. It can also represent boundaries that are dissolving or things that are not kind of strong enough. And then at the end of the week, we're going to see Mars come into a square with Neptune. We're going to get confused. We're going to go, wait, why did that happen? Why is there a delay? What's going on? And planets are going to hit anaretic degrees. They're going to hit 29 degrees. So it's going to kind of feel like nails on a chalkboard. But I really feel like when we look at some of the squares taking place between these two particular signs, it's like this theme of, you know, wanting to run towards something that you believe is true or something that seems almost too good to be true. And then we're going to slam into a wall. We're going to go, wait, is this really what I think it is? You know, am I rushing things? And also it's going to be bringing up for a lot of people that we can't speed up the healing process emotionally, physically, and also spiritually. So pump the brakes a little bit this week. Don't push through things. Really recognize what's kind of going on emotionally. Really, this is about looking at Jupiter, which is kind of ruling what's going on with both Sagittarius and also Pisces, reminding us that we have to deal with the past before we can actually fully move forward. So it'll be a week that will be peppered with some frustration. We'll see some delays, definitely some reality checks. And I think that this is kind of the pressure that we need really to build something that actually lasts. So your superpower this week is going to be patience. That is going to be the word of the week. Pull out your charts so that way you can kind of see where Sagittarius is in your chart. That's where the action is taking place. Mars is there. Look at where Pisces is in your chart. That is where it's receiving all of that pressure. Now, Saturn and Neptune are obviously going to be conjunct. We're also going to be seeing Neptune going direct. So certainly that can bring up some realizations and kind of start clearing the fog for some of us, and really showing us where we need to get out of our own way, where we have been overlooking something or not having proper boundaries or not being clear, or maybe where we are kind of self-sabotaging. This can also represent emotional blockages, spiritual blockages that are kind of going on, and we need to kind of have a little bit of willingness to overcome and maybe just honestly get ourselves out of bed, right? Pisces can be about bed. So let's talk a little bit about this Mars Saturn square. Like I said, you guys are feeling it, but it will be exact on December the 8th, 2025. So like the 6th through the 10th, Mars transits kind of kick up a little bit early. We're going to start with Mars coming into square with Saturn early in the week. So we're going to start feeling those limitations. By the end of the week, we're going to see then Mars come into a square with Neptune in Pisces, where we're going to go, well, this delay happened, but maybe it's good because I didn't quite see everything so clearly, or I'm glad I didn't pull the trigger on that. You know, that was going to be a flop, or that was not going to work out in my favor. Or maybe, you know, there was a reason why something held us back because that was not meant for us. So a lot of people are going to get affected by this square. It's happening also in the later kind of degrees of Sagittarius and Pisces. So these are kind of global degrees. So we're going to kind of see it impacting things all around the world. But if you happen to be a Mars ruled chart, okay, so if you happen to be an Aries rising, if you're a Scorpio rising, or if you're a Sagittarius rising, you guys are like kung fuing your way through the whole week. You're kicking ass and taking names. You're finally ready to overcome a challenge. So I feel like for many of you guys, you're going to actually have a breakthrough. But those of you guys who happen to be a Capricorn, an Aquarius, or a Pisces rising, for you guys, because Saturn either is your ruler, you know, Capricorn and Aquarius, or Pisces, you guys are receiving that square from Mars to Saturn in your sign. So you guys are going to be feeling like you're under fire. There is a pressure cooker that's going on, and also the later degrees of the mutable signs. So if you have anything around 24, 25, 26 degrees of Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and also Pisces, you guys are going to feel this, although I think Sag is going to navigate this a little bit better than most people. You're going to feel like that kind of gust of energy that's going to help you kind of get up, get going, and get stuff done. And obviously, mutable squares represent change, okay? So change of season, so we could see some pretty extreme weather stuff going on that's impacting travel this week, or international travel. We can also see that this is about this final push to kind of wrap up and conclude where there has been some retrogrades going on in these two signs, right? The last 2 months, we had a Mercury retrograde in Sag, really rethinking and reevaluating our belief systems, our travel, our education. And we've had Saturn and Neptune, which has been retrograde in Pisces in recent months, now both coming back online. So these two areas, there's been a lot of kind of changes that are happening, and now we're finally pushing through now that the retrogrades are complete and we can move forward. Now, when a square happens in astrology, this is a hard 90-degree angle. So when we say it's a hard aspect, it doesn't necessarily mean it's hard, although it can be challenging. It just means that it's kind of bumping into something. It's creating some conflict. So naturally, a hard square happening between two signs, this is the energy of Mars. So not only are we seeing Mars, which wants to push through something, but now it's coming into a square with Saturn, which is saying, hold on a second, let's pump the brakes a little bit. When a square hits, we see that there is this building tension. And what it does is it really demands that we have to integrate something. So we have to integrate the themes of Mars, integrate the themes of Saturn, and also those two particular signs. It also kind of represents that we have to take some kind of action, and we have to take that action even if it's going to burn bridges, if it's going to create some conflict, if it's going to ruffle some feathers. Just keep in mind that Mars and Saturn are malefic planets, okay? I'm not like a modern kind of fluff astrologer. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Mars represents drive. It represents anger. It's connected to passion, but it can also be about courage. It can be about finding the inner kind of warrior. And it's about being on a quest for truth. What is right? What is legal? What is ethically or morally kind of the higher ground? That's all Sagittarius's territory. And then we've got Saturn in Pisces, which is direct, and Saturn represents structure, timing, superiors, leaders, bosses. It can also be kind of connected to karma or anything revolving around fear. It can also represent our inner kind of authority figures as well. So when we look at Mars and Sagittarius coming into a square with Saturn and Pisces, this is going to be about philosophical truths, adventure, the bigger picture that's coming into some kind of friction with limits in compassion, maybe spiritual groups or spiritual leaders or organized religion. It can also be major topics in the courts revolving around immigration. And I think that we're definitely going to see some fiery and kind of feisty debates revolving around where are the adults in the room. I found myself saying that so much over the last month or so, and it's very applicable with this because Saturn is supposed to be the leader, right? But he's hiding out in Pisces and conjunct Neptune, which means it's going to kind of cloud who really is in charge, who's making decisions, who's pulling the strings. So when we see squares between these two signs, this can be about idealism versus reality, right? Especially with these planets. It can also mean that in certain situations this week, we want to take charge and we want to move ahead. That's Mars, but we're going to be forced to deal with slowing down, thinking about the karmic effects, recognizing where we may not have the appropriate boundaries, and we have to actually stop and feel our emotions. I know, scary, right? We can't just fight our way through things. We might find that we're fighting something because emotionally we're holding on to something that we don't want to let go of and feeling like we're coming into some invisible walls. Watch for potential for anger at institutions. We can also see some spiritual bypassing that can go on this week. And people who just quite frankly don't get it. Now, there can also be physical exhaustion symptoms that can happen because Mars wants to kind of burn up and Saturn is just going to kind of bend, I think, because it's kind of receiving that square from Mars. And we can feel like the body is carrying a lot of unprocessed grief. So remember, everything is going to stem from love or fear. So everything is a derivative of those particular two energies. So fear, we're going to see anger, frustration, hostility, rage, and we have to recognize, that's fear of change. That's fear of, being seen, or that's fear of dealing with the emotions. And at the core of that, it may not be so nasty. It's actually more just us being scared and not wanting to let go. So what it's going to feel like when we see this square coming in, kind of like you're trying to sprint through quicksand and, somebody's kind of whispering, are you running towards something or are you running away from something? Recognize where there is this flightiness that can be coming up where you're trying to kind of not deal with emotions or not process things. Some of you guys are going to feel like you want to fight, you're going to want to debate, or you're going to want to book a plane ticket to just feel free and be away from it all. But I'll tell you that even if you do run away, Saturn is going to require you to kind of come back because it's really about not escaping the past. Now, what's interesting about this square is that, yes, it's going to make us do our emotional homework for sure, because we're dealing with squares to water signs. But Jupiter is the ruler or the dispositor of both of these particular planets. So Jupiter is the traditional ruler, obviously, of Pisces. more feminine kind of nature of Jupiter, intuitive, expansive, you know, global, watery. And then we've got Sagittarius, which, you know, this is more Jupiter's kind of connection to the masculine fire side, which is about, you know, adventure and freedom and going out and doing things, and this kind of like wanderlust personality, joyful, also kind of funny. So with Jupiter being retrograde, hanging out in Pisces, where it's trining Saturn still, we're about to lose it, and it's in conjunct or in quincunx or in conjunct Mars, where it's not quite seeing it. One, we're going to need some humor, I think, this week to kind of get us through. Two, I feel like this is really saying that the growth may not necessarily be outward. And I think a lot of us might find with, you know, planets going through Sag, squaring Saturn and Neptune, we want to go big or we want to go home. We want to overdo it. We want to prove ourselves in some way. We can like burn out potentially in the process. It's not unusual when we see Mars squaring Saturn, we see things break down or things get to a point where they're starting to kind of erode or decay, especially with Saturn and Neptune there, especially if we're not doing the emotional kind of clearing of the pipe, so to say. So I would really keep in mind that the growth does not need to be external. We don't need to be over, you know, kind of producing or kind of proving ourselves right now. It's inward. So there's some stuff that's going on either in the Cancer area of your horoscope that needs to be worked out, or it could potentially be, you know, relating to family. It can be ancestral. It can also be emotional. And I think the lesson here is really that freedom isn't found by escaping the past. It's found by healing it, looking back, recognizing what has not worked, what have I always done before, where has there been some emotional hangups here, and how can I now begin to move through it. Now, what's also interesting is that Mars is the ruler and the dispositor of Chiron in Aries. So while it's coming into a square with Saturn, it's still within a 2-degree orb of Chiron, which is retrograde in another fire sign. And so fire trines make things happen very quickly, right? We can get angry faster, we can move faster, we can get things done quicker, we can be a little bit more courageous in our day-to-day. And I think that the square is kind of poking at the exact wound of, I'm not allowed to do what I want. Right? Jupiter's also coming back into a square with Chiron as well. I can't do what I want when it comes to where I'm living or with my family, or when it comes to, you know, my emotions, or I can't show my emotions the way that I want to. And I think there can be some old stories that can kind of be getting kicked up this week where we're really feeling punished for taking up space. And those are kind of coming up out loud. And so, yes, we can see some waterworks and some emotions kind of coming up with that. So it's not unusual to have some stuff kind of getting kicked up around the holiday season where there's old kind of trauma dramas relating to family that's coming up. Now, this is also the closing square. So here's the silver lining. This is what I'm focusing on. And we'll see this all through Sagittarius season. This is actually the first planet of several that are going to go through Sagittarius and square Saturn, which is going to feel like a speed bump or a stop sign. And then we're going to see Mars at the end of the week come into a square with Neptune, which is like, you know, fading, kind of wrapping something up, concluding, and being like, maybe I'm not seeing something so clearly, or maybe I am being passive aggressive, or maybe my rage is being kind of displaced or being projected on somebody else in a way that is not fair, or can represent feeling victimized by something. And really Sagittarius in a square to Pisces is overcoming victimhood mentality. You know, oh, poor me, this is happening to me. I would say, no, play a role, take responsibility. What are you going to do about it? Don't just wave the white flag and give up this week. Now, this square dates back to April of 2024. So last year, last spring, we saw that Mars and Saturn came into conjunction around 14 degrees of Pisces. So I need you guys to kind of go into your phones, go into your calendars, think about what was going on spring of last year. I'm not gonna like candy coat it. It was a shit show. Okay, this is when we had the eclipses going on in Aries and Libra. We had one hell of a Mercury retrograde and a Venus retrograde happening at the same time in Aries. Okay, so there was a bunch of planets going from Aries into Pisces. Mars conjuncted Saturn. People were feeling sad, they were feeling frustrated, they were feeling limited. But there's a storyline here that represents where Mars was limited from being able to kind of escape or move away from that Pisces kind of like prison. It wasn't able to process emotions. It wasn't able to move freely. It wasn't able to express itself. And obviously it was in a sign that was a bit debilitating. I would say, you know, Mars in Pisces is kind of like getting into a car and driving, you know, into the ocean or driving in like a pool. You can't go anywhere. So back then we planted this seed and it was around boundaries in the Pisces area of our chart. Maybe it was about boundaries and spirituality. Maybe we felt creatively blocked, a little sad when it comes to romance. And there was definitely this kind of overhanging kind of collective grief. So now Mars and all these other planets throughout the next month are going to come into a square with Saturn, and it's going to say, okay, it's time to kind of kick that to the curb. We're not going to be kind of carrying this around any longer. And it's really forcing us to, with this superior angle, get into the driver's seat. And it's really asking us to take responsibility for where we have dropped the ball, where we've been limited, we didn't have boundaries, we didn't believe in ourselves, we didn't have faith. And whatever we've been avoiding since the spring of 2024 is now getting a cosmic performance review. Now, this will be happening at 25 degrees. So 25 degrees correlates, if you follow degree astrology, to Aries. So we've got double fire, not only Mars, but we've got an Aries degree, and it's in Sagittarius. So this is raw energy. This is fast. This is, we do this now. And it's carrying this energy really throughout the entire week. So there's a lot of get up and go energy. Maybe we feel like, you know what, I'm sick of this situation. I'm finally going to change it. You know, I don't have the energy to do it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to put an end to it now. That's the kind of thoughts that are probably going to come up for some of you guys. Obviously, having Saturn at 25 degrees of Pisces, this represents the warrior finally learning that true courage is actually about surrender. And so you'll see scenarios like, you know, I hate the job, but I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going and I'm going to complain about it. And then finally you're going to go, no, I'm going to go look for a new job. Or the relationship stuff you're constantly trying to fix. And you're going to go, no, I'm not going to be trying to fix this anymore. Now I'm going to take action. And under these particular squares, it's going to be, are you going to fight or are you going to surrender? And the truth is that there are some things that are not worth fighting for this week, that you're just going to have to swallow your pride, bite your tongue, and be like, not worth the argument. But there are other things that if you get frustrated to the point of like tears, it is about being like, I'm finally going to, you know, I'm going to make a move. Now, world events that we kind of see when we see some Mars, Saturn squares or some hard aspects between these two planets, especially in these signs, you're going to see like religious or ideological kind of clashes that may be coming up out in the world. So conflict over culture, conflict over religion, conflict over immigration matters, legal matters revolving around travel. We can also see that there can be travel restrictions or new news regarding travel restrictions and whether or not they're going to be legally upheld in the courts. Sag. Protests about freedom of movement or some kind of protests revolving around college campuses. We can see that. Maritime or pharmaceutical scandals are probably going to be happening because Pisces is going to be about water or prisons, or it's connected to global health initiatives, anything revolving around medications. And then Sagittarius is going to be the legal system. It's going to be people who are going to be, you know, doctors, philosophers, lawyers, people talking out against this. And also it's going to be really, I think, really highlighting the more shadowy nature of having had Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, this global initiative to do things that are going to be influencing or impacting other countries. And so where we're having some people that are kind of selling out, right? They're selling out, and people who are in positions of power who are either being paid or they're being coerced or they're being pushed into trying to align some of their decisions with what's going on with like I believe a bit of like a global takeover. So I do think that we will see some whistleblowers that may be coming up this week. And it's going to be them talking about what's going on within institutions and whether or not some of the things that they're doing is legal, or if there is some kind of bypassing that they're doing to kind of get around court decisions or even laws. And a lot of this, I think, is also going to be connected to immigration stuff because Neptune is going to be going direct as well. So with Saturn and Neptune being in that sign, it's about all the immigration things that have been kind of behind closed doors and how it's actually how it's been impacting the life of like everyday citizens or the housing market or anything revolving around home or living situations. So there can be some big court decisions regarding passport laws, visa laws, identification laws, things connecting to immigration. All of that stuff is going to start to kind of come up in the news. You'll see it. And then finally, I think we're also going to see for the collective, right, just for us kind of generally, you know, news around border policies, religious institutions being investigated, high profile spiritual leaders that are going to be facing some kind of accountability. But also watch for ocean-related disasters. It can unfortunately manifest as like oil or chemical spills, because Mars can obviously be representing where something is catching on fire or something is being damaged. And then Saturn and Neptune can be talking about oil, it can be talking about gasoline or anything revolving around the ocean or water. And this is mutable, so it's things that are like changing or kind of like mixing. Personally, I would say for many of us, it's about not pushing, right? And you'll see Mars come into a square with Saturn and you're gonna see the delay. And then at the end of the week when it squares Neptune, you're gonna go, well, that's a good thing I didn't push this, because like that wouldn't have worked out so well. And it's not Saturn, or I guess the wall, saying no. It's just saying not like this, do it differently. If you're gonna fight, you know, you need to do it in a way that's gonna be diplomatic and fair and also well-educated. Sagittarius wants to make sure we actually know what we're talking about. I also feel like this is going to be a week where some of us are going to have to probably cry it out. There's still some water trines that are kind of taking place. So if you need to, journal the rage, you know, focus on somatic exercises and things where you can kind of release trapped emotions. Therapy can help, meditation can help, and really just pacing ourselves, because I think Saturn is actually ultimately going to be rewarding us you know, when it comes to the long game, where we're actually trying to find peace and release and not fighting to kind of hold on to something or fighting to be right, recognizing that surrendering isn't about giving up, it's about kind of preserving our energies and not burning out. So let's get into the week ahead. Let's take a look at what's happening on the day by day. So this will be starting on today's December 7th. So if you guys are watching on Sunday, if you're a Sunday crew, happy Sunday to you guys. I hope you guys are enjoying your winter weather if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere. And that, yeah, you guys are getting your cookies, your snacks, your coffee, whatever you guys are doing. I see so many comments from you guys, and I know a lot of you guys also listen on Spotify. I've noticed over the last like couple of weeks, I've heard a lot of people who've been coming to me from there as well. So hi to Spotify, hi to YouTube as well. Thank you guys for taking me with you on your Sunday errands, or you're just hanging out, maybe listening to me with the fam. Sunday is an emotional, well, we kick off Sunday with it being a little bit more emotional in the morning. The reason being is that the day begins with the moon hanging out in Cancer. So Cancer is domestic, home, family stuff, reflecting on the past, focusing on our emotions. And we've got a beautiful water trine happening where the moon is conjuncting Jupiter, making us kind of feel very jolly or very comfy. It's trining Mercury in Scorpio, which is deep and passionate, and it's also about a more kind of investigative mind, or it's about vulnerability and truth. And we also see this trine to Saturn, which helps stabilize emotions, and Neptune, which makes us a little bit more dreamy. So might feel like a little bit of a slow Sunday, but obviously that moon Jupiter feels like a great big hug. And I think that it's quite nice until we start to see the moon shift into Leo. There's going to be a pretty noticeable shift that we're going to have later in the day. So that water trine is pretty strong, really all the way through the late afternoon. And then as we get into the evening, then the moon is going to shift into Leo. So that's going to be closer to about 9 p.m. Central Time. I'm here in Texas, so you guys might have to adjust your time zones. But late in the evening, there's a pretty dramatic mood shift where we go from cardinal water to fixed fire. And this is going to be more passionate, drama, creative, you know, kind of like Leo vibes. And when it comes into Leo, it's going to oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So there can be a little bit of drama in the late evening hours on Sunday the 7th. But I think that I would focus on, for the key transit, other than that water trine, we also see Mercury is in a trine with Saturn today. So we saw that trine several times throughout the Mercury retrograde the last like month and a half. Mercury rules the mind, communication, contracts, travel, and business. Saturn is going to be about commitment, timing, and planning. Really good communication day. If you guys have been waiting until after the Mercury retrograde to sign a contract, make a commitment, do anything like that, have heart-to-heart emotional conversations, this is a really good day for you guys to do it. I recommend doing it sometime before the evening hours. I do think also for just like the daily vibe, with that moon in Cancer, it feels emotional. It can also be that we're a little bit more nostalgic, but surprisingly productive, because the moon is trining Saturn, so we can get some work done. We can feel kind of like we're in our Zen den. We can be communicating well. Perfect day on Sunday for finishing up old projects or having the hard conversations that we've been avoiding. And we can feel like we can kind of be a little bit more optimistic with the moon Jupiter. We can get down to details with Mercury in Scorpio, and we can feel like we're getting some emotional closure with some trines to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So to navigate Sunday, I would say, let yourself feel all the feels. Just channel it into something productive, channel it into something tangible. Try to focus on clear communication with home, family, property matters, anything revolving around travel. This is a good day to kind of get all of your affairs in order if you're planning stuff for later in the week, to just get clarity and make sure that things are going to be moving a little bit more smoothly. Now, as we move into what will be Tuesday, this is going to be the 8th. We wake up in the morning and the moon is still in Leo, so we're keeping an eye on the sun. And obviously now the moon has come out of the opposition with Pluto. There can be still a little bit of friction in the morning, but it's going to be separating as the day goes on. And now we're going to be focusing on the sun because the sun is connected to Leo. So first things first is I would be focusing on the fact that the moon is going to trine Venus. So Monday morning, it can feel a little bit more romantic. We can feel a little bit more flirty. There can be some more romantic travel plans or long distance relationship stuff, taking action when it comes to adventure, learning, and desire with the sun moving through that sign. Now, this is the day that we will see Mars exactly come into a square with Saturn. Okay, so even though the moon and the sun are going to trine, which means things should kind of go according to plan and things are happening very quickly or very rapidly, even though the moon is in a trine with Venus, which means we can be more lovable and like money things, relationship things, pleasure can be going the right way. You want to make the most of these transits in the morning, because as we get into later in the day, that's when you're going to see Mars come into a square with Saturn. But honestly, it's hanging around since like Saturday, Sunday. So on Monday, what you guys are going to find is that there is this peak tension that's going to come up with Mars squaring Saturn. Maybe it means that you're frustrated, maybe that there's things coming up where we're getting some ego bruises and it's real. I think you guys will see exactly where you've been forcing instead of flowing. Mars wants to push, pedal to the metal, right? And Pisces, Saturn, and Neptune is like, let's just think about it a little bit. And we may not be seeing so clearly this week. We might have some knee-jerk reactions and do things, especially with this fire trine that's kind of in action, and not be thinking things through. So what you guys are going to watch for is the Mars Saturn square. Mars can be heat, it can be speed, it can be anything sharp, anything with metal. I think of people who are driving too fast on icy or wet roads. That's very much Mars, Sagittarius Square Saturn, and Neptune. Quickly booking airfare with not taking into consideration weather conditions. People who are, getting into really heated kind of like religious or cultural debates without really seeing somebody else's perspective or like being compassionate or understanding of where they're coming from. And this is a day to just be very careful with anything that's heat, speed, or lasers related. Now, interestingly enough, this is also connected to Jupiter, right? So Jupiter is retrograde in the 4th house. So people might be saying, well, I'm just going to pack up and move and I'm going to try to do it really quickly. It may not go so smoothly this week. I'm going to, quickly drive across the country and, go and see grandma. I'd be like, obey the speed limits. Saturn and Neptune can very much be the cop that's just sitting in the weeds waiting for people with a speed gun. We can also find that this is people who are just quickly trying to scurry around and trying to get things up and ready for their house, being less than careful putting up their Christmas lights and like that kind of stuff. There can be accidents, broken bones, stuff like that can happen with Mars square Saturn. Now, what we'll also probably find is that the best way to navigate Monday is about moving your body and doing it safely. Like when I ever see Mars coming into a square with Saturn in my own chart, I'm like, this is not a day to up my weights or to force myself to do, extra time at the gym, or it's a time that I need to actually sit down, do a warm up, stretch everything. So like Mars and Sag is great for yoga. It's great for anything also this week flow. So if you do yoga, you do Pilates, if you want to do anything that's going to be a little bit less impact and like crazy resistance, just take it slow. So that way you guys aren't doing anything that's going to be, tearing or kind of pulling a muscle. And I would say maybe go for a long walk. If you need to scream into a pillow, Monday is going to be the day to do it. Keep in mind that because of some of this rage that's coming up, a lot of it is emotional. And maybe it's important to not send the text or post the rant, because I think that there may be a little bit of like some drama that can kind of arise with that moon being in Leo coming into a trine with the sun. So the morning is actually, I think, the best bet if you have to say or do anything. You're doing it earlier in the morning, because by the time Mars hits 25 degrees, which is going to be around 10 a.m. Central on, it's now coming into that square with Saturn, and then we're going to lose the moon trine Venus. And then it looks like Mars is going to come into a square with Saturn round about 6 p.m. So dinner time, dinner plans, I think like rush hour traffic trying to get home. I think about people trying to scurry to and from airports and stuff. Just expect there is definitely going to be some drama. 25 is also a military degree. It's Aries, right? So we can see that there's going to be a lot of drama revolving around scandals connecting to foreign movement, or you know, where there's potentially some military activities that are kind of taking place, and people getting riled up about what, you know, they're saying in regards to people who are supposed to be managing or leading anything like that. So just, you know, not to politic, but I think about like what happened this week with the scandal regarding like the Department of War, where there was some stuff going on with a military operation, supposedly in Venezuela. Oddly enough, Sagittarius is a foreign country. And a lot of people, you know, claiming that they were abusing, you know, their proper command or decisions when it comes to military operations, and that people were injured or people were killed as a result of it. And like it, you know, the blood was on his hands. And so throughout this last week, there's been tapes and things that have come out, and they had to go through everything, and they were trying to suggest that he was doing something that was inappropriate or it was a war crime. And apparently, you know, they released these tapes, and then you realize that he just gave orders, but then it was being passed off to other people, and it really had nothing to do with him. And so now they're kind of pulling back the story, going like, well, it was still scary and everybody got worried that, you know, you were abusing your power. That's very much Mars Saturn, and the moral and ethical concerns regarding around military operations in a foreign country, and whether or not somebody is capable of actually running their job, and if they're not doing something appropriately. Perfect explanation. But Mars is coming now at the end of the week into a square with Neptune. So we can see a lot of people getting angry, going, well, why are we doing this? Or why are we doing that? Or why are there missiles going there? And there's a lot of confusion, and there can be a lot of manipulation and hype and spin regarding if it's happening at all, if it's morally or ethically right, you know, why we should or should not be there, if certain things are classified. So I think in our own lives, we're going to see that we may take action and get angry about something, and then realize or recognize that it may not have been necessarily what we thought it was. And so, you know, kind of take that into consideration, that we can kind of have some knee-jerk reactions, get angry and get very frustrated. If you're getting delayed or if you're getting blocked on Monday, there is a method to the madness. So just mind your P's and Q's and how you're kind of communicating with people. By the end of the day, you're going to see that the moon is now starting to come into a trine with the sun, which is a really great aspect. It does mean that if we can be bold and creative, and we can be a little bit more playful and youthful, and also kind of see the silver lining in things, we can actually make some magic happen. But expect some drama with the sun being at 17 and the moon coming into a trine with that overnight. So that's going to then now take us into what is going to be the 9th. All right, so this is going to be Tuesday. And Tuesday, first thing in the morning, moon is still in Leo. We still kind of have a slight trine to the sun, so things are moving and shaking. We've also got the moon that is coming into a trine with Mars. So now that Mars is starting to leave the square with Saturn, maybe we feel like this is a better day where we're feeling more confident with taking action, traveling, learning something, you know, going somewhere. Sagittarius is about legal matters. It's about connecting with mentors, teachers, gurus, you know, traveling and any level of higher education. So if you're wanting to do something where you want to learn something creative, or you're wanting to plan a fun trip, certainly I think the moon trine Mars is going to make us feel like we can take kind of action in that department. The only hang up that we're going to see on Tuesday the 9th is that it is a very difficult communication day. And the reason behind that is that the moon is going to move through Leo, and it's going to start to come into a square with Mercury in Scorpio, which is starting to oppose Uranus in Taurus again. I have hated every single time that has happened. And then it's also going to square Uranus. So there's going to be a fixed T-square that's kind of setting up. So that's going to be also in the evening hours. You'll see Moon square Uranus, which means that there's a lot of fluctuation, change, or drama going on with children, romantic partners, maybe even with gambling or the markets, and that emotional kind of, theme of where we're getting checked because of finances. And then we see the moon come into a square with Mercury in Scorpio, which is still in shadow. It's coming out of it. But this wants exposure of truth and secrets. This is the physical or financial implication of this. And the moon going through there is bringing up the drama of it. And Leo is about leaders. So we're going to hear a lot about leaders that are going to be, saying the quiet part out loud or exposing information and finally kind of bringing out all of the gunk that has been kind of, I think, unveiled or kind of dug up throughout this recent Mercury retrograde over the last 6 weeks. So moon in the fixed sign, Leo, is dramatic. It's a very me energy. It's on stage. And so when it's squaring other planets in fixed signs, it means that there is an emotional reaction. There's a physical, kind of repercussion. There is some kind of shocking conversation. And they none of them want to bend. They all want to do the same thing. They just want to stay put. So this will create a fixed T-square, making the moon the focal point. And the moon's playing off of the sun. And the moon is trining Mars in the same sign as the sun. So it's going to be a lot of, I think, people speaking up and being leaders, being like, this is not right, or this shouldn't be happening, or being like, damn the consequences financially, or what other people think, this is what needs to be known. So we can see that on Tuesday, there can be arguments. I think there's going to be a lot of arguments on Tuesday. I don't like saying that. But there can also be breakthroughs. When we have these squares, it can be breakthroughs regarding money, right? Squaring Uranus and Taurus, in regards to values, in regards to self-worth. And we're going to see the theme of Tuesday is going to be the stubbornness and the willingness to dig in our heels and wanting to stay the same, think the same, spend the same, look at things the same way, versus the need to evolve. And the sun and Mars are saying, see the bigger picture here. We have to learn to kind of overcome this. We have to recognize that there are some lessons that are coming up, or people are talking to us about our values. Probably some drama going on in the banking or kind of like financial world is what I would anticipate, especially later in the day on Tuesday the 9th. My advice is to navigate this, because there's no real big transit happening. Like Mars is leaving the square of Saturn, Mercury's starting to come into an opposition with Uranus, but there's no big communication or, like drama related thing other than that moon transit. Is take a breath before you speak on Tuesday. Ask yourself, do you want to be right or do you want peace? And I think most of us are probably going to be opting for peace, although it's going to be kind of hard to kind of keep our mouths shut as Mercury is starting to oppose Uranus. So if you go back and you think about what happened around Halloween, what happened around, the third week or so of November, there's been a lot of like shocks and surprises and intense conversations that we've been having. And so I think that there's yet another one that's going to be kind of coming up. So think about what you have learned throughout those processes. All right, so now we're going to take this into the evening. The moon will square Uranus late at night. And that's when you're going to see all of that kind of communication stuff happening. And then it's going to go into Virgo overnight. So then we will wake up on the 10th, which is Wednesday, and the moon is in Virgo, which means we are focusing on Virgo and Mercury related things. And the Mercury-Uranus opposition will perfect this day. Job changes, job losses, schedule changes. I think we're going to see a lot more companies that are going to be letting people go. I think this is also going to be lots of financial shocks and surprises that can be happening with people. And maybe it means with the South Node connection, to Mercury and also Virgo, that some people are saying, well, I have to budget differently, I have to spend differently. This is also going to be a lot of data and information coming out regarding, what's going on with consumer spending and how many people are putting stuff on credit and whether or not things are being put on payment plans and how that's impacting, the way that retailers are looking at things. It can also represent that there's going to be some changes going on in the service industry where, we're going to be looking at, are people laying off people? Are they having to hire more? Is there going to be some changes in some of like the kind of like holiday spending, that kind of stuff? Because it's very money stuff when you're looking at Mercury and Scorpio. And Mercury is in opposition to Uranus again, and it's at a 28. So this is going to essentially represent things that we keep bringing up and keep talking about, right? Because it's the past. It can also be sibling drama, family dynamic, changes revolving around interest rates, or news coming out in regards to changes with interest rates, how that's impacting the housing market, and mortgages and buying and selling and loans. When the moon's in Virgo, we want to focus on organizing, cleaning, purifying, maybe focusing on service, watering the plants, walking the dog, checking things off our to-do list, focusing on health. But the South Node is in this sign, so it means it's also going to highlight, pretty much on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, what's not working, what's breaking down, what's not healthy, what we shouldn't be eating. And in particular, I think a lot of this has been about news connecting to food. And so proud to kind of say, I said this very early on last year. I was like, look, the South Node's going to go into Virgo. I was looking at some of these transits. I was like, they're going to get toxins out of food. They're going to talk about stuff that's dropping off of the schedules for medication. They're going to be talking about how they're going to go in and also change the process of how they're educating and teaching people about food. And we're seeing it. Look at all the additives that they're removing from food here in the United States, all the dyes and stuff they're taking out of it. They're also talking about taking certain foods off of food stamp programs and things that people should not be consuming. And I think we're going to see some more of that. There's been some of this stuff that's been kind of going on this week. But I think that this could also materialize as people going, oh, well, I had a job change, or, I got laid off, or, I didn't get a bonus, or I'm being offered, severance or a retirement package. That stuff can kind of happen with this Mercury-Uranus opposition. It's important to focus on healthy habits and recognize where it's not just all about what you're eating or even your physical activity, because Mercury is in a psychological sign. So it can be focusing on reproductive health or things connecting to detoxing or kind of cleansing, and the stress regarding around, the changes with how we're eating or our stress eating or other things that's kind of connected to us wanting to feel like we need stability and security. Now, Mercury obviously is in opposition to Uranus. We've also got Venus that will come into a square with the North and the South Node on this day. So this represents basically faded relationship themes, faded money themes, faded shifts in regards to our values, our resources, our pleasure. And this is obviously kind of talking about being at a fork in the road where certain people can come into our lives. It can be a faded kind of destined meeting time, particularly if you have this happening in like your 7th house or your 5th house. So if you're a Leo rising or if you're a Gemini rising, this is going to be very relationship oriented for you. And that will square at a 13, which is another Aries degree. So it's like, are you going to take action and kind of be more optimistic about going after what you love or doing what you love or making money in a way that feels good or prioritizing, even relationships? So it can be some big relationship stuff for some people, but for others, I think it's going to be kind of asking ourselves, do I want to go out there and see something or someone new or find something new and exciting? Or do I want to stick with what's comfortable and what feels like safe? That's very much the Jupiter connection to Venus. So I think some of us are going to be experiencing, probably with that moon coming into a square with Venus and with Mercury in opposition to Uranus, there can be some anxiety spikes happening on Wednesday. So it's important to remember we got to breathe. There is going to be, probably some glitches going on with technology. There could be some issues with onboarding, crypto or banking or transferring of funds. We could see some issues in regards to media or like internet outages. Power things can kind of happen with that opposition. And I think for many of us, we might find that we're overthinking or even like nitpicking relationships. Now, karmic choices will be made when it comes to love and money on Wednesday. To navigate this, I feel like it's about grounding rituals. I think that that's really the medicine of Virgo. It's also about maybe saying, okay, one step at a time. I can't do everything at once. On Wednesday, go and clean one drawer, right? Start the process of beginning a budget for next year. Maybe choose the partner or the friendships that align with where you're going with your future self, because you got to be thinking about what's in the future, not what's in the past. Neptune is also now direct, and it's at 29. So with Saturn and Neptune now in conjunction again, they are now full steam ahead into the beginning of 2026, and they want you to wrap up a storyline in the Pisces area of your chart. So this is going to make all of this, Pisces theme where we've been confused, we haven't been taking action, we don't know what we're doing, maybe we're afraid, a little bit more seriously. That moon is going to come into a conjunction with the South Node. And it looks like first Mercury will oppose Uranus, and that's going to happen around 2 p.m. Central Time. So that's where the shocks and surprises come with money. And then right after that, because this is very much influenced by the Virgo moon, then we're going to see Venus is going to square the north and south node earlier in the morning. The moon will hit the south node late at night, and there is like a lot of emotional clearing that's happening overnight. Okay, so stick to those healthier habits if you guys can on Wednesday. Now this will take us into Thursday the 11th. And when we wake up in the morning, the moon is now coming out of a square with Venus. So there's probably been some, relationship changes or some emotional kind of clearing or something that's been impacting our finances or partnerships. And now the moon is heading towards a square with the sun. So on Thursday, this is going to be the last quarter moon. So if you guys think back to this last week, we had the full moon in Gemini, which was a doozy. It squared the nodes. Everything was like all over the place. We're going to see now the last quarter moon. So things are breaking down as we're preparing for the up and coming new moon in Sagittarius. I put that video out. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. And we are going to see a nice aspect is Mercury is now trining Neptune. Really strong intuition day. We've also seen this several times throughout the Mercury retrograde. It's funny because I went and I looked back at the days that Mercury was in opposition to Uranus and there was a shock, but then there was a trine to Neptune or Saturn, and it was like, okay, well, it's a good thing we got that out of the way. Like kind of cleared the air, So a good day for divination, good day for meditation, good day for just kind of tapping in and seeing what's going on. Know that when we have the quarter square moon, things feel discombobulated. Things don't always go according to plan. There is some kind of change or falling out that's happening in Virgo that's kind of impacting or influencing what is about to begin anew in the Sagittarius area of your horoscope. So more or less, what I would really focus on is that there can be this feeling on the 11th that there is like a crisis of faith. And I think that we see that a lot when there are squares between Virgo and Sagittarius and Pisces, because Virgo says, well, just make it real, make it work, make it actually something that's functional. And Sagittarius is like, it could be all of this. And then Pisces kind of like sometimes loses the plot. So we're going to start to see a lot of these mutable squares happening on the 11th and on the 12th. So there could be confusion in regards to our dreams and our faith or our belief system. There's probably going to be sudden clarity that will come thereafter. And then the fog starts to lift. And that's because also Neptune is going direct. Now, Venus will also enter into, Mercury will enter into Sagittarius. So now it's going to finally leave Scorpio. So we're not going to have all that intense kind of heavy like digging energy. And that'll be right around the time that the sun and the moon are squaring. So the sun and the moon square at a 20 will be around 3 p.m. Central Time. And then boom, Mercury goes into Sagittarius. So it's not in this like dark Scorpio dungeon. Now it's going into, okay, we went to hell and back over the last month. What did we learn? So now there's going to be more focus on communications, international travel, international relationships. Venus is there. Also, all of this change is factored in by the moon hitting a 21. So there's definitely going to be some changes with air travel. I'm going to keep telling you guys this. Whether it's, okay, there has been some changes where they had shortages or they were having like security issues or issues with TSA because of the shutdown. Now are they bringing more people in? Maybe. But it could also mean that there are some major changes going on with flights due to weather in certain parts of the country. And I am anticipating you're going to hear a lot about this on the 11th and the 12th. So if you guys are flying, just get there early. Make sure that you guys have everything ready to go. Maybe we're going to be feeling like we are releasing, what the Virgo moon has kind of been obsessing over, and we're now trusting with Mercury and Sagittarius, the bigger picture, the bigger story. Certainly, I think that once we, get out of the Mars Saturn square, things feel a little bit more optimistic for sure. So you might kind of feel that kind of lift a little bit on the 11th. And it looks like as the day goes on, after that square between the sun and the moon, then the last square that's going to happen is going to be overnight, where the moon starts to oppose Saturn in Pisces, which is going to happen in the overnight hours right here. And then it's going to start to square Mars. So there could be some like restless energy, trying to get to sleep, trying to stay asleep, worrying about all the changes that kind of happened, on the 11th going into the 12th. All right, then we're going to focus on what's going on Friday. So when we wake up Friday morning, little bit of a doozy here. So this is another day that things can feel a little frantic. Moon is still in Virgo. Now Mercury is in a sign that's more positive, although it is debilitated because it's moving through the opposite sign of Gemini. And the moon's going to oppose Saturn. So it means that there is going to be this feeling of, I want to rest, I want to go to sleep, I'm tired, Grandpa. And the Virgo moon's going to be like, that's too damn bad. Get up, take a shower, go to work. And it will also trine Uranus. So if you are staying on task, staying focused, not feeling defeated, and trying to stay organized and in a routine, especially because it's squaring Mars, we can get a lot of stuff done. That trine to Uranus means that we might be different with money. We might be different with what we're eating. You know, we might be shifting our kind of values and our mindsets. You want to lean into that. But the moon will oppose Saturn, so we're going to feel emotionally a bit stretched. It's also going to oppose Neptune, so we're going to feel kind of confused in regards to why we're feeling the way that we're feeling, and we're more aware of like health-related matters. And then the moon is going to come into a square with Mars. So if you're an early bird, Friday morning in the morning feels very chaotic with that mutable T-square. It is going to make Mars the apex, the apex of that particular square. So it means that there is going to be some brewing frustration and agitation, and it's going to be like, what's going on? What's happening? And like nothing really makes sense. And know that when Mercury is getting triggered here because of the moon, it has a tendency to inflate things, to make things seem bigger or more dramatic, or that there's more going on than, you know, what's really happening, and it can kind of tell tall tales. What you'll see is that, yeah, there is some drama, you know, from pretty much 3 a.m. to about 7 a.m. There feels like some existential crisis that's happening. And then as the day goes on, there's a little bit of like sweet relief. And that's going to be when the moon goes into Libra. So if you have later degree mutable signs, I would say 24 to 29 degrees, like Friday, just, I mean, like take it easy, you know, because you're going to feel like things are coming at you from all angles. And then as soon as the moon goes into Libra, which is going to be closer to around 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Central, then there's a huge vibe shift. We're not focusing on this kind of like, you know, never ending kind of chaos in Virgo. Now we're focusing on relationships, partnerships, togetherness, working with clients, being with spouses, partners, dating, highlighting Venus, which is still slightly in a square to the north or south node. So there could be some big money stuff happening, some big relationship happening. And the moon is going to trine Pluto. Right? Like I almost look at Venus squaring the nodes throughout the week, and then we see like these squares coming into, you know, from Virgo to Sagittarius to Pisces, where it's like some people might be like, you know, oh, my flight got delayed, and, you know, now I'm sitting at an airport for 4 hours, and my whole schedule got screwed up, and now I'm going to be late to work, and they're, you know, trying to get stuff done, and then they end up meeting somebody at the airport, you know, or something crazy like that. So there can be like the universe intervening in a way, trying to bring love to you, or trying to bring a relationship to you, or trying to bring you some kind of financial benefit. So try to kind of see and ask the universe, what is the reason for this? And you'll see it's gonna, there's gonna be like a blessing in disguise here. Moon in Libra, trine Pluto in Aquarius is great for socializing, connecting with friends, talking about, you know, goals and like the future. So there can be this kind of powerful emotional shift that can happen, which can be really positive. And it's really about working together. And the balance kind of starts to return from the kind of later morning on. I think to navigate Friday, what I would be really focusing on is if you wake up panicking, okay, write it all down, go back to sleep. You know, the morning, later in the morning, it's going to bring some kind of harmony, okay? Especially if you wake up and you're having anxiety or you have a nightmare, just get it out of your system, go back to sleep. You'll wake up rested and probably feel a little bit better. And then as the day goes on, we're then going to see the moon hit that trine to Pluto around 2 p.m. Central Time. It's also going to start sextiling Mercury and Sag, so it's great for communication and travels and like, you know, getting some support where support is needed if there is some kind of change to your plans. And then we're looking at Venus, and Venus isn't really doing anything. It's close to the sun. It's in the same sign as Mercury and Mars, so there's definitely a lot of Sagittarius energy in the sky, but nothing is really kind of going on in that department. And as we go through the day, it looks like into the evening, the moon is not really going to be aspected. So I think that's pretty much it for Friday. Let's take you guys into Saturday. And Saturday, moon's in Libra. I love that the moon is going to sextile Venus. I also love that we are going to be seeing that now Venus is out of the square with a north or south node. And so relationships going to be built on what are we learning together? Where are we going? What do we believe in? You know, where are we kind of expanding and being more optimistic, talking about what the future can be? And this all correlates and relates back to what? Jupiter. So where are we moving? Where are we traveling? What's going on with family? What's going to be happening with our home or a living situation? Are we expanding? Are we remodeling? Are we relocating? You know? And I think a lot of people, I've said this over the last month, are going to be doing Christmas quite different this year, or the holidays different this year if you celebrate a different holiday. On the 13th, we're going to see also that Mars is going to hit 29 degrees. So now we're out of the Mars Saturn square where there's been delays, and now we're coming into the Mars Neptune square where it's going to be a little bit more feeling like our energy's drained. There can be a sense of confusion with what direction we're going in. Getting lost is pretty common. When I see Mars and Sag square Neptune, it's like, like I'm not used to being in this city or this part of town, or I'm in a foreign country and I don't know my way around, or, my navigation's not working. Like, where am I? So there can be this sense of, I think for some of us, really needing to lean into the moon in Libra and some of the sextiles to Venus. It makes things a little bit more social, a little bit more charming, but watch for the rose-colored glasses when it comes to love or money. I think that that's another theme that I would kind of watch for. And Mars square Neptune is also like high tide for accidents involving water. We can see issues with drowning, unfortunately. We can also see issues with major problems revolving around storms, particularly in coastal cities, flooding, stuff like that, and not really knowing what direction we're going in, and kind of feeling energetically drained. Now, I would navigate today, the 13th, by focusing on the beauty, focusing on the support we get from other people. Not a day to really sign or agree to anything. I would say, like, while Mars is squaring Neptune, we may not see things so clearly. And Mars is also in the same sign as Venus. So when it comes to spending money, buying money, planning trips and things, keep in mind that December is going to be peppered with being like, is this too good to be true? Does it sound good? Or like, are we getting kind of catfished? So let's go through the day. So you're going to have Venus that's going to be in a sextile with the moon. It looks like kind of late afternoon, dinner time. And then we are going to see a sextile between Mercury and Pluto all day, which is great for traveling, socializing, connecting with friends. Mars hits 29 degrees, and by the end of the day, it's now starting to come into a square with Neptune. So this is where you have to be very careful when it comes to anything that involves stuff that's sharp, anything that involves water, alcohol, drugs, taking risks, being too risky. I think a lot of people are going to be like either traveling to places that they did not well research, or people who are going to be considering packing up and moving and going to places, or relocating and then being like, oh, did we make the right move? Certainly some travel stuff can also be a little fuzzy as well, where it's like, the Airbnb doesn't look quite like the place that you thought it was going to look like, or, how something was falsely kind of represented in an ad online. So watch for that. We get into then the overnight hours. The moon will oppose Chiron and square Jupiter. That's going to happen very early in the morning on Sunday, the 14th. So Sunday is a little emotional next Sunday. Usually moon in Libra is really great for getting support when support is needed, but because it opposes Chiron, it does bring up some relational issues and some drama, some long-standing issues, 22. And then the moon's going to square Jupiter, so it's going to make Jupiter the focal point, or the apex of this square, which makes everything feel bigger. I think when I look at this, I can't stop looking at the fact that I know that the moon's going to hit the late degrees of Libra, and it's going to in conjunct Uranus, and it's going to in conjunct Saturn and Neptune. So if there is some money shocks, or if there are some blockages going on emotionally or spiritually, it's a great time to kind of like lean into relationships, or be talking to a therapist, or working with a partner and being like, okay, like how can we work together to solve this and overcome it? But I also feel like Sunday is going to be where the illusions start to shatter, and that's because Mars is squaring Neptune. So now where Mars was squaring Saturn, saying like, why hasn't anybody done anything? Now it's like, okay, well, clearly this hasn't been taken care of, and like this is a mess, so now I have to. And we're preparing for next week when Mars goes into Capricorn, where it means business. That's going to be a great 6-week period. But until then, certain things have to kind of crash and they have to kind of fall, right? Certain illusions are going to kind of break. And I've seen it a lot in the lives of my clients, and how it really correlates to Jupiter, where it's like, they thought if they just relocated to a new place, all their relationship issues would go away, and they're realizing it's not. Or, they have family that moved across the country and thought they wanted to live somewhere, and then they realized it's not what they wanted. Because sometimes when we have Sagittarius placements, we're running away from things that eventually those problems kind of catch up with us, and we have to deal with them anyway. And so I think that's what's kind of coming up for us, especially later in the week. Now, we will see that even though illusions are shattering, there is going to be some spiritual truth serum that's going to come in. And I think that's going to be connected directly to the moon going into Scorpio later in the day. Because when the moon leaves Libra, you know, it's all peaceful and there's a lot of harmony. But moon's going to hit 29, Mars is going to hit 29, Neptune's at 29, Uranus is at 28. Guys, it's not just because it's the end of the year, things that are cycling through and ending. It's like planets are at the late degrees of these signs and it's saying this needs to be completed. We need to get this wrapped up. So nails on a chalkboard, Mars square Neptune. Where are we going? What are we doing? Don't doom spiral, okay? Don't do that. Whatever is shifting for good reason. Remember, it's because something else better is coming. And I think that I would be hydrating on Sunday, on the 14th. I would be resting. I'd be meditating. I would be like, nobody is going to throw me off of my zen today. It doesn't matter who wants to get angry or who wants to get pissed off. And you're going to see angry drivers or people getting, you know, pissed because there's delays with trying to get around, or people getting mad at airports, or people fighting at airports, or arguing on college campuses. And I would be like, I am not going to, you know, like absorb that. That's not my stuff. Like clean off your auric field, do what you have to do to collect yourself before you leave the house. Try not to let other people kind of push you over the edge, because it will try to kind of get you into some kind of collective anger or rage, but it's not going to get us anywhere, right? So you just want to give them a peace sign, or, you know, blow them a kiss, whatever you'll have to do, so that way you're not absorbing it. And know that, you know, this is initiation energy. It's saying, you know what? Especially mutable, I love the mutable signs. I wish I had some mutable in my chart. I don't. That's probably why I'm just so kind of like monotone about everything. But you guys can deal with clown world, and I couldn't imagine having some of these squares in my chart. So if you have them, I'd love to hear how you navigate this. Probably a lot better. But things are breaking down and things are changing. And a lot of this is going to be the stories that we've been telling ourselves, the things that we have been believing in regards to being the victim, or this happening to us, or this isn't happening, you don't have to worry about it. We're going to realize, oh no, there is something happening, and now it's time to kind of shatter that illusion. So we're initiating, moving, and making way for what will be this cardinal energy as we're getting into later December, where Mars in Capricorn is going to kick ass. I can't wait until it gets into that particular sign. So we'll talk about that next week. That is your week ahead. Let's talk a little bit about where like this Mars and Sagittarius energy is moving through the chart for the 12 signs. Let's talk about the square to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, especially now that both of them are direct this week. And let's give you guys some helpful insight and some pointers to what you want to watch out for, and maybe how to kind of navigate this heavy vibe, because man, that's definitely what it is. As a reminder, guys, I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. So I'm going to be looking at this from the perspective, obviously, of the whole rising signs. To make the most of my predictions, I recommend listening to your rising sign first, and then looking at the houses where these particular aspects are setting up. That's going to tell you what's likely to happen in your life. Now, this is happening between 24 and 29 degrees. So if you take into consideration the Mars Square Saturn, Mars Square Neptune. So if you're a Placidus user, you may have to listen to another rising sign just to get an idea of where the square is taking place. But hopefully that's helpful for you guys. And you can definitely listen to your sun and your moon sign, because I think it'll correlate as well. Now, we're going to start with my Aries and my Aries risings. I hope you guys are ready. Remember, you guys are in the driver's seat. You, Scorpio and Sagittarius, are the ones like running around being like, okay, I'm going to crack the whip. I'm going to get it going. And you're going to feel, I think, a lot of push and motivation to finally overcome something. So that's the positive for you guys. I do think that Mars being your chart ruler and kind of being at the tip-top part of your chart, especially having all the Sag that's trining Chiron, it's going to help you overcome where you have felt rejected or kind of wounded. So there's going to be some empowerment there. But still, you're coming up against, you know, Saturn that's just chilling in your 12th house. So what you're looking at, Aries, is that there is a square going on between your 9th house and your 12th house axis. And this is your beliefs versus your hidden fears. And it's about you overcoming your hidden fears with a little bit of faith, with a little bit of a solid routine. So what you're being asked to do is to walk your talk, even though nobody's watching. So I think that I would really be focusing on having a meditation practice this week. I think it's going to save you. If you have to pick up a book or work with a new mentor or a guru or a teacher, or maybe you're wanting to learn some kind of combination of physical fitness and also mind, body, spirit balance, that would be wonderful. Know that you are also overcoming any issues or doubts that you have in regards to your career or your goals, because Saturn is kind of tied to these two particular things. And this is about the willingness, with Mars is tied to your 8th house, to overcome some of your self-sabotaging ways. So it's okay to take time to meditate or rest a little bit, but you have to get out there. Some of you guys may have to travel this week. You may have to learn something. You may have to connect to a teacher, a mentor, or a lawyer. So watch for those things that may potentially come up. All right, we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. What's up, Taurus? You're going to be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius. It's coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune and Pisces in your 11th house. So you have squares happening from your 8th and your 11th house axis. For you guys, this is all about shared resources and friendships being tested. So someone may owe you money, or there might be like an emotional debt going on. Obviously, Mars ties to your personal one-on-one relationships. It's also tied to kind of hidden anger, frustration, or resentment. 8th house is all about getting paid, and those squares are superior to Saturn and Neptune in the 11th house. So you might go, well, I've got this friend, you know, maybe you feel like they take advantage of your generosity. Maybe you feel like you're not being valued or, you know, kind of considered by certain friends or groups. Maybe you're contributing a lot to a group, but you're not really feel like it's an even exchange. So I feel like a lot of this for you guys is about setting the boundary, doing it with love, right? Certain friendships you're willing to give as long as you're getting something kind of emotional in return. Loyal friendships, commitment, somebody who's there when you need them. But if you're feeling like you're going through the weeds right now and there's a lot of people who've been taking, you might feel like it's time to snip some of those relationships that are draining you. Good luck, Taurus. Let me know what happens. For Gemini and Gemini rising, you guys are going to experience Mars going through Sagittarius in your opposite sign in your 7th house of relationships. It will be coming into a square with Saturn and also Neptune in Pisces in your 10th house of career. Gemini, get a helmet. You know, I think that it's been interesting. I think you can negotiate because Mercury is in your 7th house. I think you can work with people. But I also feel like this can be a real test when it comes to your close one-on-one relationship. So some of you guys, it's with your spouse. It can be with a business partner. It can be clients that are testing you. It can be working with a therapist to have a breakthrough. But I look at this and it's very much about the 7th and the 10th house axis. So it's about your partnerships and relationship action versus your career, your reputation, and your public life. So a relationship matter can definitely be impacting your public image right now. And that could be who you're married to, who your business partner is, your clients in some capacity. And they can be helping you and feeling inspired and working with you to help you overcome some of these setbacks and blockages, or they can actually be doing some damage when it comes to your reputation if they are kind of putting their foot in their mouth. So choose the person this week, not the image. Focus on preserving that relationship, that dynamic, working together, trying to be diplomatic, you know, really trying to show up for committed relationships right now. Don't be overly prioritizing work, because it can actually be a time where your partner might need you for some reason. And yeah, there can be a little bit of frustration in the process, but you have to be present with that, and also be really caretaking and tending to the relationships with the clients that are going to be the most financially beneficial to you as well. Remember, Jupiter is the ruler of this and it's in your 2nd. Good luck. All right, Cancer and Cancer rising, you guys are going to experience Mars going through Sagittarius in your natal 6th house. It's coming into a square with Saturn and also Neptune, which will be in your 5th house, in your 9th house. So this is like a conflict between your 6th and your 9th house axis. This is where your daily routines, okay, so going to work, brushing your teeth, working out, taking care of your health, dealing with coworkers. There's some friction that's coming up between those routines and the bigger picture, like your purpose. Why are you here? Some of you feel like you're just going through the motions. You need to be careful with this one because you've had a retrograde in this house, because Jupiter, the 6th house ruler, is retrograde in your 1st. And it can be very health related, and it can also be bringing up for a lot of you guys burnout if you're not aligning work with your soul's purpose. Now, Mars rules your romance and kind of creative sector. It's also connected to your career. So you might be kind of feeling like there's a lot of running around doing busy work, but you're delaying going to school, booking the trip, taking the program, you know, connecting with the guru, something like that. And I would say for my Cancer risings, say no to jobs that are dimming your light. I know some of you guys are trying to be employed right now, or you're looking for work, but I would be like, If you're not finding what you want, for some of you guys, it might mean this is the final turning point and you're finally committing to going, okay, I'm going to go and get the degree. Or, you know what, I'm finally going to go back and I'm going to start teaching, or I'm going to start training. Or it's going to push you to finally kind of write that book or put something out that's going to feel a little bit more soul oriented. And I hope you guys take care of your health through this transit. This is an important one. Watch for delays that can happen with education, traveling, challenges with coworkers, potentially some legal dilemmas, and keep an eye on your pets, okay? Good luck, Cancer. All right, we've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius. It's moving through a fellow fire sign in your 5th house. It is coming into a square with Saturn and also Neptune and Pisces in your 8th. This is a square where there's friction between the 5th and the 8th house. Obviously for you guys, the 5th house is kids, romance, boyfriends, girlfriends, creativity that is now kind of tangled with either intimacy issues, trust issues, money issues, right? That kind of stuff. Mars does deal with relationships at a distance, or it can be, some challenges revolving around relationships and travel. We've also got Mars kind of connected to family, so it can mean there are some bigger stories revolving around, are we going to be moving? Are we traveling? Are we going to be relocating? And obviously Saturn rules your relationships, so there can definitely be a lot of questions regarding whether or not relationships are being tested. This is all like the preview of eclipses that are coming at the very beginning of next year in your 7th house, where there's going to be some big relationship kind of highlights that are going to be taking place. So I think that, or I vote for you, Leo, to really focus on creating for the joy, not for the validation, loving for the experience, and being willing to potentially get your heart broken, and really focusing on doing things that are going to promote joy, overriding the fear, and also combating or trying to kind of deal with intimacy or security related things. All right. Also, financial challenges revolving around children or joint expenses with children that can be coming up as well. Good luck, Leo. Let me know what happens. All right, for my Virgos and Virgo risings, buckle up, especially if you're anything, I would say 24 to 29 degrees, sun, moon, rising in Virgo, because this is really hitting the mutable signs pretty hard. You've got Mars going through Sagittarius in your 4th house. It's been kind of kicking up a lot of dust. There's been maybe moves, renovations, drama with the family, changes with roommates, getting out of the house, maybe traveling is a good use of this energy. And it's coming into a square with Saturn this week and also Neptune in Pisces. So Mars is going to rule joint finances. It's also going to rule communication, cars, vehicles, and siblings. And it's coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune in your 7th house of relationships. So this is where the action in regards to home and family is coming into some friction with committed relationships. And I think for a lot of Virgo and Virgo risings, you're going to see a lot of old family patterns that are playing out in partnerships, fighting at home, drama over Christmas, dilemmas over, changes with moves or living situations. And I feel like because Mercury eventually, your chart ruler, later down the road will also come into some of the same squares with Saturn and Neptune, some Virgo and Virgo risings might be feeling like if they're not handling this appropriately, or if they're not able to appease their partners, or if they're not able to find support or some kind of relationship dilemma, or support in the middle of a relationship dilemma, then you're going to be experiencing some communication issues later in December with partners. So be mindful of trying to keep the balance between what's happening at home versus what's kind of happening in your relationship. A lot of family demands maybe, or some pressure in regards to moves, which can be creating some relational issues. I do think that this is for a lot of you guys, focusing on maybe finding like a third party to intervene, right? Like the 7th house can be an astrologer, it can be a therapist, it can be a coach, it can be a teacher to some extent. And it can mean that you have people coming in to help you work through this and kind of be the mediator between you and another person. Maybe it's a family member, maybe it is a couples therapist, but it does make me feel like there is going to be this feeling of not being able to totally make a partner feel fulfilled. And if you're single, it might mean that you're contemplating or considering getting out of the house so you could potentially get out there and meet someone, or relocating maybe to kind of better your relationship kind of potential. So hang in there through the transit. It can be a bit sticky in December, but then it's going to start to kind of subside. Definitely watch down the road when Mercury starts coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune, and even when Venus is squaring as well. I think you guys might see some big turning points this week in regards to what you need to do to feel more comfortable at home. Libra rising, you guys are going to be experiencing Mars going through the sign of Sagittarius in your natal 3rd house. It is going to be coming into a square with Saturn and also Neptune in your natal 6th house. So the square is between the 3rd and the 6th house axis. So these houses are kind of like about change, communication, learning, you know, scheduling themes. Libra, Mars is obviously directly tied to your relationships, and it's also going to be tied to your money. And we've got the square to Saturn and Neptune. So what this is going to kind of bring up for you, Libra, in this superior square, remember Venus is here as well. Venus is going to square the nodes this week. So it's about speaking up, speaking kindly, being loving, trying to be optimistic. But your communication in your daily work or health flow. So you have to watch for harsh self-talk. That can happen. I recommend like a walking routine or a journaling routine. I think that can help you move through this energy this week a little bit better. Be very careful, Libra and Libra risings, with driving, okay? Because, you know, Mars coming through the 3rd house could be you're speeding, and then boom, the square to Saturn is, you know, there's something that breaks down or it gets broken or it's shattered. You have to get it fixed. The 6th house can be going and getting your car worked on or taking it to the shop. This could also mean be careful with harsh communication in the workspace or how you're communicating with other people that you work with, like employees or, you know, even other, other people at work. And I would say watch for the sibling drama. There could definitely be a lot of drama in how you're communicating with either siblings or either neighbors. And I think that as a Libra rising, you know, I look at this and I'm like, well, it's time to soften how I communicate. And maybe a lot of the stress is coming from the Saturn and the Neptune and the 6 of, yeah, there's a lot, you know, kind of going on schedule-wise. There's a lot of responsibility and things on the plate. But if you approach this optimistically, especially with the connection to Jupiter, and you go, I'm so grateful that I'm so busy and this is great and I'm appreciative and I'm practicing gratitude and it's just communicating with people, hey, I can only do so much. A little bit of sugar is going to go a long way. So be kind in how you speak to yourself and other people, and try to look down the road and see where there could be some scheduling hiccups and issues in December. Get ahead of it now, right? Start having that conversation. All right. Good luck, Libra. Scorpio risings. You guys are going to experience Mars, your chart ruler, going through Sagittarius in your 2nd house of money, income, and self-esteem. It's going to start coming into a square with Saturn in your 5th house and Neptune. Superior square. Scorpio, finally you start to kind of have some wins this month. I think that I would go back and I would think about what's been going on since 2024, because the 5th house themes of wanting love but not being able to find it, wanting to be creative but not knowing how to work through creative blockages, wanting to find love and maybe feeling lonely, wanting to have children but feeling like it hasn't been the right time. All of these things kind of come up when you see squares between the 2nd and the 5th house. And the 2nd house wants to make money, the 5th house just wants to be creative. So now it's almost like your money and your self-worth really come online. And yes, it's challenging or pushing you when it comes to your creativity, your relationship with children, or a romantic partnership. But I would look at it and go, are you undervaluing yourself? Are you undervaluing what you create? Are you undervaluing your worth? Are you not giving yourself credit where, you know, credit is due, especially for your creative talent? This might be about raising your prices or raising your standards. It can also mean that you are making some sort of investment in your joy or in your happiness, or you're feeling like now you're willing to take creative risks or even financial risks. The only setback here is that, you know, it's still a Mars-Saturn square. And so Mars is going to deal with your health, your habits, and your routine. Saturn's going to deal with how you communicate in your home. I think a lot of this is going to be about what you're willing to invest into a home situation or into like a home business. And I really feel like it's more about you investing in things that you know that are going to make you happy. And so there are some things that are worth spending money on right now because it may actually yield better results. And that could be a hobby you're investing into, art classes, dance classes, your own business, or even just spending a little bit more money on like a date night or doing something like that that could really enhance the kind of romantic blockages maybe that you've been feeling with some of this square. I hope that's helpful for you, Scorpio. I hope you guys navigate this like a pro. All right, for my Sag and Sag risings, this is equally interesting for you guys. I have a lot of Sag risings in my life. And it's been really interesting to watch you guys kind of come to this point where now you're going to go, okay, I'm sick of this. I'm going to do something about it. So you've got Mars going through your sign with a slew of other planets. So you guys are playing with home field advantage. Obviously, the squares are from your first house of self to Saturn and Neptune in your fourth house of home and family. Mars does represent your kind of hidden subconscious or self-undoing tendencies, repressed anger or frustration. It's also connected to your fifth house of children, creativity, and romance. And Saturn and Neptune ties to money, resources, moving, and home. So superior square means you are now going to start kicking Saturn and Neptune's kind of butt. And you can be like, okay, it's time to get clarity on, you know, why I feel so blocked emotionally, or it's time to get myself out of this funk or out of this depression, or it's time for me to finally move house, or, you know, finally clear up some family drama or karma, or, you know, step in and kind of help a family member who could be in need. Can be good for do-it-yourself projects, although I would say if you're a Sag rising, I do not recommend renovating your own kitchen. I do not recommend doing your own plumbing. Because I think there are some things that you need to leave to the professionals with this square, no matter how handy you are. And this could manifest as like a personal identity conflict versus who you are, where you come from, your family, like really separating yourself, I think, in that kind of capacity. So this is all about who you're becoming, Sag, and it's not about where you have come from, because you're kind of overcoming some of the challenges of what's happened to your family, what's happened in the past, where you have lived, where you have struggled, where you didn't know where your home was. And now you're being given, I think, the green light to detach from that storyline. I think it's about outgrowing your roots. I do feel like it can be challenging in a physical sense because you may have all of the stamina and kind of physical energy, but there's still going to be some emotional stuff that's going to be kind of lingering. So I would say have a solid physical fitness routine, work through it. And maybe this is going to be stuff that kind of ties to things that have been happening, you know, with your childhood, and now you're finally kind of breaking some of the bonds with that. But yeah, some of you guys might feel like you're literally moving this week and you have to do it yourself, or you're having to step in and take care of a parent and you're on your own, or this is parenting themes when you're on your own. So if you're a single parent, it might feel a little heavier this week, and you might be reflecting on, you know, what your parents have gone through and how that kind of played into your storyline. I would just say watch for the heavy moods and be mindful of not allowing yourself, I think, the time to kind of breathe and step away from some of the home and family kind of responsibilities that can kind of come up. Okay? Good luck. Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you guys are going to have Mars going through Sagittarius in your natal 12th house of what's hidden, subconscious, behind the scenes, foreign lands, spiritual, coming into a square with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. So for the next 3 signs, you guys are the ones who are needing to put on your armor for the next week, because you guys are going to be feeling like you're getting it from all angles. Mars is attacking Saturn, which is either in your sign Pisces or your chart ruler, Capricorn and Aquarius rising. Now, what can I say about this? I guess silver lining, you know, is that Mars is about to go into your sign. And this is like the season right before we come into Capricorn season. So it doesn't matter if you're a Capricorn sun or you're Capricorn rising, everything kind of gets filtered out right now. And you might feel like everything's being thrown up in the air and you're just like, I just want to be left alone. I just want to retreat. I want to rest. Sure, yeah, you can do that to some extent. But Mars in the 12th house is going to represent hidden enemies. Could be your friends, connection to the 11th house. Obviously, it could be family-related issues, connections to your 4th house. And it is possible that hiding out is not necessarily the best option, because some things are going to kind of come up karmically and kind of out of the blue. Now, Saturn rules you, and Saturn is also directly tied to your money. So that means that there could be some unexpected money stuff that can be happening. Like I look at the square between the 12th and the 3rd, where it could be unexpected car expenses or things you need to fix. It could be unexpected drama revolving around money and siblings, unexpected conversations regarding travel that makes you feel kind of anxious. And certainly there can be some hidden fears that are kind of coming through, because the 12th axis is what's subconscious. The 3rd is going to represent the mind. So hidden fears surfacing through communication, nightmares, anxiety dreams, these can happen. Write them down, okay? So if you wake up in the middle of the night, write them down, get them out of your subconscious. That's what I want you to do. And I would also say a good way to kind of navigate this is to just take a little bit of time to be practicing some breathwork exercises and not feel like you have to overdo it. Like wait till Capricorn season. You're going to see within like the next 2 weeks, like things are going to be quite different. but there is this sense of releasing everything, and what's being released is all tied back to Jupiter. So relationship karma, you know, changing relationships, finding things out in relationships, having conversations that you have some breakthroughs in regards to who you're with or what you want. That's possible. And whether it's journaling, you know, having a walking routine, or doing some breath work, that's going to kind of help you navigate this. But watch for some kind of curveball conversations, either with siblings or with relationships, likely this week. Good luck. Also, watch your health, okay? 12th house is hospitals. So, like, you know, this is like something I've always done, because the 12th house can be hospitals or it can be churches or temples. I would like maybe, you know, go to a temple, you know, this week, or go to church. You know, even if you just want to sit in the pews and you want to pray, or if you want to walk into a hospital, go to the pharmacy, pick up, you know, a pharmacy prescription that you need to get, or get some Advil or some Pepto-Bismol, get a coffee, right? Hang out for a few minutes to kind of clear some of that energy, so you're not predisposed to having to need to go to a hospital for any reason, because that could definitely happen, especially because of either breathing issues, lung issues, or issues revolving around mobility. So, you know, you're walking around on the street, you're on a bike, you're driving, keep an eye out with what's around you, because with these squares, something can kind of hit you out of left field, literally. Good luck. Aquarius or Aquarius rising, you guys are going to experience Mars going through Sagittarius in your friendship zone, in your 11th house, and it's coming into a square with Saturn and Pisces in your 2nd house. So we've got a square between the 11th and the 2nd house axis. 11th house is parties, friends, and goals. 2nd house is your money, your resources, and your values. Mars is tied to career, and it's also going to be tied to, obviously, communication. So there could be a lot of networking, there could be a lot of business or holiday parties or other things where you're, you know, entertaining, or you're with other people, or you're, you know, you're giving things, you're producing things. And I would say it's possible some Aquarius risings might actually feel undervalued by their friends or their communities. They're like throwing parties, but nobody brings gifts. They are reaching out and connecting, but people aren't really like reciprocating. And I would say it's okay this week to leave the check to other people, you know, because Saturn in your 2nd house is like, I'm not going to pay for this, or I don't have the money for this. And it can mean it's a good time to kind of expect other people to say, hey, we care about you, we appreciate you, thank you. And they give you a thank you, they send you a card, maybe they send you a gift, maybe they do something in honor of you. And like, this is now about you receiving and not feeling like you have to be the person who's carrying everything financially, and finally feeling rewarded. So even though the Mars-Saturn square is difficult, where you may not feel like you're getting all the recognition in a group project that you necessarily want, or it isn't necessarily equating to like a massive bonus, what can be beneficial is other people giving you that recognition and that credit. And I would say take credit where credit's due. Take the gifts, receive the physical things, let other people kind of pick up the check this week, because I think you've done enough, and it's about you now allowing other people to start to recognize your value. This is also tied to Jupiter in the 6th house. So like, you could find that this is about friends who are really helping you at work, or that you're kind of connecting with new groups and like letting other people help you with the process of either changing jobs, changing positions, or potentially getting a raise. Let them speak highly of you, and let you be recognized. So I would enjoy that time, but don't be trying to cover too much financially entertaining, because it can be a bit financially draining, okay? Good luck, Aquarius. And for my Pisces and Pisces risings, equally is a little challenging for you guys, although I know you'll overcome it. You have got Saturn and Neptune, which are now direct in your sign. So I want to start there. That means that you should be clear in regards to your non-negotiables, your goals, your long-term kind of plans, your visions. You're aware of what you're no longer kind of hiding away from. This is because Saturn is tied to your 11th and also your 12th house. And Mars is going through Sagittarius with just a slew of other planets really lighting up your career zone. So a lot of this is about getting a lot of work done, really starting the year off next year strong. And Mars is going to be tied to legal matters or education or travel. It also has a tie to money and resources, and that's all squaring Saturn. So you're working hard for the money. I really feel like you might feel as if there's just almost too much happening, and like you have to just keep things going, and you can be feeling a bit depleted. Obviously, squares from the 10th house to the 1st house can really represent where your career and your public image is kind of coming into conflict with your personal identity. So if there's a mask that you've been putting up, the mask now starts to crack. And I think it's about letting them see the real you. I think that is your superpower. Both of these transits are feeding off of Jupiter, your chart ruler, retrograde in the 5th. So it's about you focusing more on what's going to make you happy, or what's going to be most fulfilling, or what's going to be most creative. And yeah, there is a lot expected of you at work, but I feel like you can only take so much. And so watch for where there's almost burnout, or there can be a lot of like criticism or competition that's going on at work. And you might kind of look at things and be like, no, I don't want to have to kind of fight that. That's not in my personality to be that competitive or to be kind of cutthroat. I'm gonna get the success, and I'm gonna do it in my own way. Definitely be mindful of your health as well. I would say squares to your first house. This could be where, you know, overworking does not necessarily equate to being at the top, especially if you feel like your body or your immune system is very much Pisces, is definitely taking the brunt of it. So keep an eye on your health throughout these transits, and it's all about what you're learning about yourself in the process of when you're under pressure. Can you show up and can you get it done, and can you do it in your own way, right? Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you, Pisces and Pisces risings. I hope everybody navigates these transits well this week, because guys, obviously it is tough, but it's also holy with that that square to Saturn and Neptune, and certain things I think are going to be delayed, and it's going to be for good reason, and they're going to be a blessing in disguise. So hopefully the Mars, Saturn, Neptune stuff is able to kind of forge you in fire, so you come out on the other side unbreakable. Can't wait till next week when Mars goes into Capricorn. I'm already putting something together for you guys, so we have a game plan to make the most of that transit. Be gentle with yourselves this week. Obviously rest if there are some heavy emotions and feelings that come up. And I think we're going to realize that like the freedom that we've been chasing isn't, you know, really on the other side of this tension. It's kind of like within it. So if this video helped you guys, if you resonated with it, please do give me a thumbs up and like the video. Consider sharing, and definitely comment your rising sign below and let me know how you've been feeling throughout the transits this week, how they've been hitting you. I really appreciate it. It does really kind of pump up those numbers. We're getting closer to 50,000 subscribers. So I hope you guys subscribe and stay a while. And I will catch you guys back here on Tuesday in this next week. I hope you have a beautiful weekend, and I'll see all of you very soon. Take care.